The Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Bridges, Cook, Coram, Crowder, Danielson,
Here.
Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Hill,
Excused.
Heisey, Holbert, Lee,
Here.
Lundeen, Marble, Moreno, Pedersen, Priola, Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Story, Tate, Todd, Williams,
Present.
Winter, Woodward, Zinzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 34 present, 0 absent, and 1 excused, we have a quorum. Members, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance Approval of the journal. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the journal of Wednesday, May 27th be dispensed with and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Senate Services.
Correctly printed, Senate Bill 209, correctly engrossed, Senate Resolution 5, correctly enrolled, Senate Resolution 5.
Second reading of bills consent calendar. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's been a request to take Senate Bill 29 and Senate Bill 118 off of the general order second reading of bills consent calendar.
Senate Bill 029 and Senate Bill 118 will be removed from the consent calendar as requested by the Majority Leader. Second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself in the committee of the whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Moreno will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies, we are a little out of practice, but there's also obviously some changes and differences these days. And Mr. Chair, I would like to pull off House Bill 1109, Senate Bill 41, and I believe that is it. The other two, 118 and Senate Bill 29, have already been taken off of the consent calendar.
You've heard the motion to, thank you. The bills that were referenced by the majority leader will be removed from the consent calendar and placed on the general order second reading of bills calendar. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the titles of the remaining bills on the consent calendar?
House Bill 1135 by Representatives Buckland, McLaughlin, and Senators Todd Lundin concerning removing the requirement for the Department of Education to administer a state assessment in social studies to high school students. Senate Bill 35 by Senators Scott and Janal and Representatives Gray and Carver concerning the kiosk program that authorizes private providers to offer services on behalf of the Department of Revenue. Senate Bill 194 by Senators Bridges and Finberg and Representatives Gray and Van Winkle concerning the ability of a licensed brew pub to sell retail malt liquors that are manufactured at separate brew pub under the same ownership as the brew pub at which the sale occurs. House Bill 1214 by Representatives Snyder and Williams and Senator Tate concerning the continuation of the statutes governing home warranty service contracts in connection therewith implementing the recommendations contained in the 2019 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. House Bill 1281 by Representatives Pelton and Valdez and Senator Heisey concerning the salary categorization of locally elected officers in specified counties.
The National Guard one. I don't know.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which includes House Bill 1135 along with the Appropriations Committee report, Senate Bill 35 along with the Appropriations Committee report, Senate Bill 194, House Bill 1214, and House Bill 1281.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports to any of the bills on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of all the committee reports on all the bills on the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee reports are adopted. Is there further discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of all the bills on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
Senate will come to order. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report is that in consideration of the following task bills being the second reading thereof makes the following recommendation on Senate Bill 35 as amended, Senate Bill 194 passed second read order and gross place account for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1135 as amended, House Bill 1214, House Bill 1281 passed second reading and order revised place account for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1109, Senate Bill 41 removed from the general order second reading bills consent calendar and placed in the end of the general order second reading bills calendar for 5/28/20.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 035 is amended. Senate Bill 194 passed on second reading, ordering gross and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 1135 as amended. Senate Bill 1214, Senate Bill 1281 passed on second reading, order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1109, Senate Bill 041 removed from the general order second reading of bills consent calendar and placed at the end of the general order second reading of bills calendar for 5/28/20. General order, second reading bills. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole for consideration of general order second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of general order second reading of bills, and Senator Moreno will take the chair.
I don't know if we're even. You can do it. It's good to go if you want to. I don't know how you make it live. You can operate it. But don't you have to do something so they can see it on the computer? You know what I'm saying? Okay, that's fine. I think we're fine. I just since we're not actually doing the defense, I just have these already.
The committee will come to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we proceed out of order to take up House Bill 1345.
The motion is to proceed out of order to take up House Bill 1345. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will proceed out of order. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of the House Bill 1345?
House Bill 1345 by Representative Garnett and Neville and Senators Finberg and Holbert concerning payment of expenses of the Legislative Department.
Apparently we do not. I think that's okay.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1345. Is there a committee report?
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment L002?
No.
Amendment L002 to House Bill 1345 by Senator Finberg, amendment reading goes bill page
Mr.
2.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L002 to House Bill 1345.
To the amendment, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, House Bill 1345 is the legislative appropriations bill. And this, I think when this started to move right before we adjourned in mid-March, it was going to be a pretty kind of standard legislative appropriations budget with a couple of changes that would increase the appropriation minimally. Given the circumstances that we sort of saw coming, we decided to not run that budget in mid-March and instead wait until now when we would have a better sense of the fiscal situation. So L002 really represents a scaling back of the legislative appropriations budget. We're not making any massive cuts, but I think these are reductions and cuts that make sense. And first and foremost, we are not doing some of the projects and extra expenditures that we anticipated that we wanted to do, for instance, for IT. And then we also are having the legislative appropriations budget mirror some of the common policy decisions that were made at JBC for the state, for the general fund budget. There is a memo on your desk that outlines all of these changes and sort of the status of where the legislative appropriations budget stands right now. I will defer to the minority leader to further explain anything that he wants to point out, but happy to answer questions or provide more commentary on some of the cuts and some of the changes versus the bill as it existed on March 14th. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do rise in support, ask your aye vote on L002. When we left here in March, it was a challenging time. The week before that, the Majority Leader and I were leaving the Appropriations Committee across the street, and Director Natalie Mullis of Legislative Counsel stopped us and said something very unusual. She asked that we not move the legislative appropriation bill forward on second reading. Having been the Majority Leader before, I know that the Director of Leg Counsel usually is up here chomping at the bit, move that bill, get it done. Why do we run this bill before the budget? Well, we want to make sure that this branch is funded before we hand the budget over to the governor for all the other parts of government. But Natalie Mullis was correct. We needed to wait. There were a lot of new plans. There were renovations. There was new hardware and software. There were new FTEs. There was growth. November, December, January, it was an optimistic outlook. If you look at this memo that Natalie has provided, Director Mullis has provided, and you turn to page 4, then you can look at the fiscal year 2021 amended budget amount and the percent of change on each line item that's listed. You will see mostly zeros and negative numbers, a few positives, and there's a couple at the top that I wanted to address. Member salaries will go up. Is that a sensational story? No, there was a bill passed in the year 2015, and it implemented the new higher salary for members of all 65 members of the House and half of this body, those who won their races in 2018 and were sworn in January 2019, and the other half of the Senate will get that increase in salary base starting next January. And that will finally put us all on the same income, all 35 members of this chamber. The 65 members of the House have been at that higher amount since January of 2019. And then as of January 2021, all 35 members of this body will be. The session per diem, I want to give shout out, credit to the good senator from Fountain. I think you will see in short order a bipartisan bill to decrease that non-metro per diem amount. Those of us who lived within 50 miles of the Capitol have collected $45 a day for, I joke, since Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but it hasn't been quite that long, for 20, 25 years. But the non-metro per diem is 85% of the federal rate. And I just give credit to the non-metro legislators who've come together and decided that's probably not a good thing to implement. So while this amended version of the legislative appropriation bill will include an increase in non-metro per diem, there will be a bill, I believe it's bipartisan in both chambers, to call a timeout on that. And the appropriation on that bill will actually make that adjustment. We don't need to amend the budget here. But to get to all that, I want to say thank you to the agency directors, the state auditor, Joint Budget Committee, Legislative Council, and Office of Legislative Legal Services. They had aspirations, they had plans, they had growth in mind, and they have scaled virtually all of that back. If you have any specific questions, members, I would be happy to try to address those, but proud to be with the majority leader and offer L002, and the credit for that really goes back to the legislative management team, and specifically the 4 agency directors, the Secretary of the Senate, the Chief Clerk of the House, and the 6 members of the Executive Committee. This is no fun, but this is a very, very different legislative appropriation bill than we would have seen when we left here in March. Ask for an aye vote on L002.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I would like to concur with the comments that were made by the minority leader. This particular budget, I really encourage you to take a look at the tables that have been provided to you in the memo that shows the amount of reductions that have taken place. They are significant. Some of these reductions are in 82%, for example. We have a reduction of nearly every single line item in the legislative branch here has taken a reduction. And I just want to say that I echo the compliments to the staff and the department leaders for this particular line item. We had to cut a lot from our budget, and everybody had to do their part, and I believe that they were solution seekers with us by bringing this to the table, and so I would very much encourage an aye vote.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one point of clarification. The non-metro per diem is statutory, so we can't make that change here today, and that's why a bill will be required to call a timeout on that. So if we could make that change in the budget, we would have already done that, but watch for that bill, and again, the appropriation clause in that bill will make the adjustment back into the budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The members of the Joint Budget Committee appreciate your cooperation. Is there further discussion on Amendment L002? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Is there further discussion on House Bill 1345? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1345. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed,
Aye.
no. The ayes have it. Delayed, but the ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 138?
Senate Bill 138 by Senator Rodriguez concerning increased consumer protection for homeowners seeking relief for construction defects.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 138 lay over until December 31st.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 138 to New Year's Eve. All those in favor say aye.
Senator Rodriguez.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader.
To the good senator from Denver, we will see you on New Year's Eve.
Mr. Majority Leader, Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to House Bill 1270?
House Bill 1270 by Representative Michael and Janae and Senator Fields concerning the consent of one parent for a licensed professional person to treat a minor for a behavioral health disorder.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want that to be the only bill on the calendar, come December, so I move House Bill 1270 lay over until December 31st.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1270 to December 31st. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to House Bill 1127?
House Bill 1127 by Representatives McCluskey, McLaughlin, and Senators Todd and Sonnenberg concerning extension of the employment after retirement limitations for retirees of the Public Employees Retirement Association employed by a Board of Cooperative Services after retirement.
Senator Todd.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the good senator from Sterling and I move House Bill 1127 on second reading and ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1127? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1127. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1127 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to House Bill 1153?
House Bill 1153 by Representative Escar and Senators Garcia and Pedersen concerning the relationship between state employees and the state as their employer and in connection therewith creating the Colorado Partnership for Quality Jobs and Services Act and making an appropriation.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1153 lay over until tomorrow, May 29th.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1153 to tomorrow. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 1?
Senate Bill 1 by Senator Fields and Representatives Sirota and Van Winkle concerning expanding behavioral health training for kindergarten through 12th grade educators.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 1 lay over until December 31st.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 1 to New Year's Eve. This is going to be the saddest New Year's Eve on record. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 7?
Senate Bill 007 by Senators Pedersen and Winter and Representative Monteo and Wilson concerning treatment for substance use disorders.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 7 lay over until tomorrow, May 29th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 7 to tomorrow. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 9?
Senate Bill 9 by Senators Zinzinger and Rankin and Representative McLaughlin and Catlin concerning expansion of the Adult Education and Literacy Grant Program.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to reject the committee report from the Education Committee, and I move to, well, we'll do that one first.
The motion is to reject the Education Committee report. Is there discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the rejection of the Education Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Education Committee report is rejected. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you. I move to reject the Appropriations Committee report.
The motion is to reject the Appropriations Committee report. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Appropriations Committee report is rejected. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 9.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment L002?
Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 9 by Senator Zenzinger, amend print bill page 13, strike lines 2 through 11, and substitute Section 8 safety clause. The General Assembly hereby finds, determines, and declares that this act is necessary for the immediate
Senator Rankin.
preservation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move L002.
To the amendment, Senator Rankin.
So what this amendment does is remove the petition clause and substitute the safety clause.
Is
And-
there... Oh, Senator Rankin.
Yes, and the reasoning for this is that we expect additional federal money to potentially come into this program. And in the spirit of recovery, this would allow the participants to, the new participants, which this bill covers, to apply for and receive those grants and get to work before November.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L002? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I just want to explain for a moment why we rejected the committee reports. The reason we rejected the committee reports is we stripped the appropriation from this bill. So we are no longer going to be infusing money into this program. So then you may ask, well, what does this bill do? What this bill does is it changes the criteria for the type of education, adult education provider, and it expands it in order to allow two-gen approaches towards adult education. And as the good senator from Carbondale also explained, this now makes more adult education providers in the state eligible to participate in the federal programming, and I encourage and I vote.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 9? Senator Lundeen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Members, what you see before you is flexibility in public education. And I'm going to argue that as we work through the limited funding we have and how we are interacting with public education over the next days, it will be one of the most important things we can do to provide flexibility in public education. Now, this particular bill helps adults get access to education, and that is meaningful, because if that adult doesn't have access to education, they can't help their child. And we need to provide that level of support. If federal dollars are going to flow in to help support this, that's good. I think it's really important that we all know that public education changed dramatically in this last 2-3 months because of what has happened with COVID, and flexibility to support parents who are now playing an additional role in that child's education while the child may be in the home, while blended learning, which is expanding dramatically, may be happening this fall, is an important thing to have happen. So I appreciate this bill, I support this bill, and I just want to say, as one of the macro themes that we will be dealing with as we walk through the budget, as we walk through the balance of this session, as we prepare for next fall, when the children go back to school, flexibility is going to be key, and I appreciate this bill because it has a significant theme of flexibility. Thank you, members.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted one last final thought on this. We have over 300,000 adults in Colorado who do not have the equivalent of a high school education. 40% do not even have an 8th grade education. So this bill will enable us to provide education to more adults so that they can in turn provide for their families and be productive members of our economy, and I encourage and I vote.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 9? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 9. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Aye. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 9 is adopted. Member, I thought with the social adherence guidelines that the chamber would actually be a little quieter, but apparently not. Let's keep it down to a dull roar, please. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 19?
Senate Bill 19 by Senator Tate and Representative Desmond Bachenfeld concerning the creation of the Legislative Oversight Committee concerning tax policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 19 lay over until December 25th.
Is to lay over Senate Bill 19, I believe that was to December 25th, otherwise known as Christmas. Oh, right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Merry Christmas, Senator Tate. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of the Senate Bill 22?
Senate Bill 22 by Senator Danielson, Representatives Titone and Duran, concerning modifications to the Colorado Health Services Core Program administered by the Department of Public Health and Environment to expand the availability of geriatric care providers in shortage areas in the state.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 22 lay over until December 31st.
Motion is to lay over Senate Bill 22 to December 31st. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of the Senate Bill 107?
Senate Bill 107 by Senator Janal and Representatives Mullica and Jackson, concerning analysis of prescription drug manufacturer data on high-cost prescription drugs paid for by specified state departments to determine the components of the production process that drive the price of the prescription drugs.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 107 lay over until tomorrow, May 29th.
Motion is to lay over Senate Bill 107 to tomorrow. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over to tomorrow at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 159?
Senate Bill 159 by Senator Hansen, concerning measures to limit the global warming potential for certain materials used in public projects.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 159 lay over until December 31st.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 159 to December 31st. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of the Senate Bill 55?
Senate Bill 55 by Senators Priol and Story and Representatives Cutter and Arnn, concerning the expansion of market mechanisms for the further development of recycling.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 55 lay over until May 29th.
Mr. Majority Leader, excuse me, was that May 29th?
Correct.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 55 to May 29th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 185?
Senate Bill 185 by Senators Bridges and Tate and Representatives Tipper and Wilson, concerning the creation of the Colorado Imagination Library Program.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 185 lay over until June 3rd.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 185 to June 3rd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of the Senate Bill 51?
Senate Bill 51 by Senator Priol and Representative Valdez A., concerning license plates and in connection therewith specifying that in order to minimize potential lost registration revenue, the license plates of a motor vehicle that is classified as Class C personal property expire upon the sale or transfer of the motor vehicle, and that in order to improve eligibility and enforcement, a revised color scheme is required for certain license plates manufactured on or after a specified date.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 51 lay over until May 29th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 51 to May 29th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of the Senate Bill 89?
Senate Bill 89 by Senators Danielson and Garcia and Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez, concerning funding assistance to increase the minimum amounts paid to persons employed by local education providers.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 89 lay over until December 31st.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 89 to December 31st. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of the House Bill 1201?
House Bill 1201 by Representatives Hooten and Gonzalez Gutierrez and Senators Moreno and Janal, concerning providing homeowners in a mobile home park the opportunity to purchase park under specified circumstances.
Do you want me to move it?
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1201 lay over to the end of the general order second reading of bills calendar.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1201 to the end of the calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No? The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over till the end of the calendar. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to House Bill 1236?
House Bill 1236 by Representatives Lontine and Will and Senators Tate and Bridges concerning a health care coverage enrollment program that uses information gathered from state individual income tax return forms to aid uninsured individuals in obtaining health care coverage.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1236.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1236? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1236. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title of the Senate Bill 29?
Senate Bill 29 by Senators Fields and Moreno and Representatives Coleman and Duran concerning an annual cost of living adjustment to the amount of basic cash assistance a Colorado Works program recipient receives.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 29 lay over until May 29th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 29 to tomorrow, May 29th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
No? The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 118?
Senate Bill 118 by Senator Heisey and Representatives Gray and Valdez D concerning the transfer of the function of issuing permits for the transportation of hazardous materials by motor vehicles from the Public Utilities Commission to the Department of Transportation.
Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 118 basically transfers, I move the bill and the committee reports. Now, I have a couple of amendments. Obviously, my notes were not correct here.
Okay,
we
Senator
good?
Heisey, we will go ahead and take action on the committee reports, and then we can offer the amendments that you have. So, to the Transportation and Energy Committee report, Senator Heisey.
Thank you on both of those. We had some amendments that basically just kind of cleaned things up and made it flow better.
Is there further discussion on the Transportation and Energy Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Transportation and Energy Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report, Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to point out on this one, this is a bill you want to vote for because in appropriations, we were able to actually help the budget with this bill. CDOT will be taking this on without extra funding, and so we removed some funding from the PUC, so this is a net gain for the budget this year.
Is there further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Appropriations Committee report is adopted. I believe we have
Mr.
some
Chair,
amendments. Yep, Senator Heisey.
I would like to offer amendment L003.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment L003?
Amendment L003, Senate Bill 118 by Senator Heisey.
Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment was necessary because of our long delay out of session, so it changes the timing of when violations would occur, who they would be responsible to.
Senator Heisey, will you please say the magic words of I move L003?
I move L003.
Perfect, thank you. Is there further discussion on Amendment L003? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L003. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Senator Heisey.
Mr. Chair, I move L002.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment L002?
Amendment L002, Senate Bill 118 by Senator Heisey. Amendment.
Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one is a little bit more interesting. This is the nuclear option, as we're referring to it. Who would have thought that transporting nuclear goods does not fall under hazmat? However, it did need to be called out separately, so we have an amendment moving permitting of nuclear waste, nuclear material over to CDOT and keeping it all in the same system.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L002? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L002. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Senator Lee. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted.
So now, Mr. Chair, do I move the motion or the motion's been moved?
Senator Heisey.
No further amendments, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 2118 as amended.
The question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 118 as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 118 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to House Bill 1109?
House Bill 1109 by Representatives Van Winkle and Garnett and Senators Gardner and Todd concerning extension of the income tax credit for employer contributions to employee 529 qualified state tuition programs.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1109 lay over until May 29th.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1109 to May 29th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 41?
Senate Bill 41 by Senator Cook and Representative Garnett concerning parks passes for active members of the National Guard.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 41 lay over until May 29th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 41 to May 29th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to House Bill 1201?
House Bill 1201 by Representatives Hooten, Gonzalez, Gutierrez, and Senators Moreno and Janal concerning providing homeowners in a mobile home park the opportunity to purchase the park under specified circumstances.
Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1201. There are no amendments.
Senator Janal, I believe there is a local government committee report, though. Please move that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The local government passed the House Bill 1201 unanimously, and I ask for an aye vote. There are no amendments. There are no committee amendments.
It appears there was.
Excuse me, there was an amendment, and the amendment was that there had to be no earlier than 30 days after mobile home park owner provides the notice required by the subsection. It was changed to a 90-day period instead of a 30-day period, and I ask for an aye vote.
The question before the body is the adoption of the local government committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the local government committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move 1201, and basically, House Bill 1201 gives homeowners, mobile homeowners, or an association representing a majority of homeowners the opportunity to make an offer to buy a mobile home park where they live if the landlord anticipates selling it or changing the use of the land. The bill provides adequate transparency and notification of sale and requires good faith negotiation. This is one of the most affordable types of housing right now, and we are in a housing crisis, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1201? Senator Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 1201 is one of those bills where it sounds great. It's going to give those homeowners a chance to perhaps hold on to those. But one of the unintended consequences is it will permanently dissuade investors and property owners from building new mobile home parks. As soon as you get, as you probably know, when there are folks out there who put a first right of refusal on a property, when you sell your property that way, that makes the property worth less, because someone's not going to put all the due diligence in and make an offer to someday buy that property if they know that there's going to be upended by some local homeowners, particularly with a long announcement period of, say 90 days or something like that. So what this sets us up to do is to make sure that there are no more mobile home parks built. So this is a great way to sort of begin to weed out mobile home parks, drive up the cost of housing. So some of those unintended consequences, I think in the short term, mobile homeowners will see some benefit, but I think that long term we're going to see fewer and fewer options for homeowners.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did hear this in committee, and we did have a lot of questions on this, but they've been answered. And I think this, actually, I had the same concerns as the previous speaker before it started, but I think after hearing it, the sponsor's spiel on this, we did vote for it, and I think it'll be a decent bill for a lot of people. I was looking at this more from a standpoint of someone just starting out in life, but the reality is there's a lot of people there that are of an older sect that I think will have a benefit from this. So I'm going to support this bill because I think it is a decent bill. Thank you.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I too also went into this committee meeting with some reservations on the bill, but we were able to discuss it and talk about the issues that could come up, and at the end of the day, I am convinced that this is probably a pretty good program. It still has to be a fair market value. So, I was concerned with who is going to finance that, but these homeowners, because they're there because they don't have a lot of resources. But there's some nonprofits out there that are willing to pick this up and handle it. So I think this is a good stopgap for some housing situations. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1201? Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of House Bill 1201, and I just want to take a moment to commend the mobile home owners themselves who have been engaged in advocacy every single step of the way. I have had the honor and privilege to meet with them. They just live outside of my district in one mobile home park, but have seen them over the years work towards solutions at the city council level, at the county level, and now here at the state. I'm proud to see them organize and build allies to be able to move forward this piece of important legislation today, and I am happily supportive of this policy. Thank you.
Senator Janot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all who came down to support, the good senators who supported this. I just wanted to clarify that this is giving people a chance, a step in giving Colorado manufactured home residents the opportunity to purchase a community, but also to control their own future as homeowners. And I too, over these last several months have met with a variety of people in mobile home parks. Some are on fixed incomes. Their rents go up and up. The stories that I've heard, if they could get together to try to get a resident organization, they need at least 51% of the residents to be able to or agree to a fair negotiation.
Sorry.
And there is public sector or nonprofit involvement, and there is 90 days to make that decision. But some of the stories that I heard, especially at 55 and over, is there was one woman whose rent keeps going up every year, 58, 59%, even higher. And this person had been in this community for about 15 years. And fixed income, she had $11 left over. And to me, that's just not right. And so the opportunity is here. I appreciate all the support, and I ask for your yes vote on 1201.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1201? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1201. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee will begs lead reports out of consideration the following test bills being second reading. The makes following recommendation on Senate Bill 9 is amended. Senate Bill 118 is amended. Passed second reading. Order goes place counted for the reading of final passage. House Bill 1345 is amended. House Bill 1127. House Bill 1236. House Bill 1201 is amended. Passed second reading. Order revised place counted for the reading of final passage. House Bill 1153. Senate Bill 007. Senate Bill 107. Senate Bill 055. Senate Bill 51. Senate Bill 29. House Bill 1109. Senate Bill 41. Laid over until 5:29:20, retaining the place on the counter. Senate Bill 185, laid over until 6:3:20, retaining its place on the counter. Senate Bill 19, laid over until 12:25:20, retaining its place on the counter. Senate Bill 138, House Bill 1270, Senate Bill 1, Senate Bill 22, Senate Bill 159, Senate Bill 89, laid over until 12:31:20, retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 009 as amended, Senate Bill 118 as amended, passed on second reading, order engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1345 as amended, House Bill 1127, House Bill 1236, House Bill 1201, as amended, passed on second reading, order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1153, Senate Bill 007, Senate Bill 107, Senate Bill 055, Senate Bill 051, Senate Bill 029, House Bill 1109, Senate Bill 041, laid over until 5/29/2020 and retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 185, laid over until 6/3/2020 and retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 019, laid over until 12/25/2020 and retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 138, House Bill 1270, Senate Bill 001, Senate Bill 022, Senate Bill 059, Senate Bill 089, laid over until 12/31/2020 and retaining its place on their calendar. Consideration of resolutions. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Resolution 003?
Senate Resolution 3 by Senators Heisey and Zinzinger concerning recognition of Single Parents Day.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Resolution 3 lay over until December 31st.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Senate Resolution 003 will lay over until December 31st, 2020. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 020?
Senate Joint Resolution 20 by Senators Todd and Marble and Representative Mateo concerning the recognition of National Women's History Month and in connection therewith designating March as Colorado Women's History Month and commemorating the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we move Senate Joint Resolution 20020 and ask that it be read at length, please.
Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the resolution at length?
Senate Joint Resolution 20 by Senators Todd and Marble and Representative Mateo concerning the recognition of National Women's History Month and in connection therewith designating March as Colorado Women's History Month and commemorating the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. Whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, especially in the areas of political and social change. And whereas the United States boasts a rich history of women whose vast and courageous achievements speak to the sense of excellence and potential shared by all Americans. And whereas our country would not be where it is without the strength, bravery, insight, and persistence of the women who have come before us. And whereas American women have played and continue to play a critical economic, cultural, political, and social role in every sphere of the life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force, working inside and outside of the home as everything from educators to astronauts. And whereas American women have been leaders, not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements that have created a more fair and just society for all. Whereas the fight for women's suffrage, from the first Women's Rights Convention to enfranchisement, lasted 72 years, with women from all walks of life, political views, and demographic backgrounds asking for the right to vote, voice their opinions at the polls. And whereas it took male allies to support women in their endeavor to vote, for it was sons, husbands, and fathers who ultimately heeded their calls. And whereas most of the women who asked for the right to vote never lived to see the enfranchisement of women. And whereas daughters, granddaughters, and great-granddaughters of the women who fought so hard to vote have made their voices heard at the polls for 100 years. And whereas women have not only played a critical economic, cultural, and social role in our society, but women have also permanently changed the face of American government and politics. And whereas in 1893, Colorado was the first state to give women the right to vote through popular vote, and a year later, Colorado was the first state to elect women to the state legislature. And whereas on December 15, 1919, Colorado ratified the 19th Amendment, and on August 26, 1920, after the remaining 35 states ratified the amendment, the 19th Amendment became law. And whereas the first women elected to the Colorado General Assembly in 1894 were Clara Cressingham and Frances S. Clark, both from Arapahoe County, and Carrie C. Holly from Pueblo County. And Carrie C. Holly has the distinction of being the first woman in United States history to initiate and get a bill passed. And whereas more than 200 women have served in the General Assembly since 1913, including Helen R. Robinson, who became the first woman to serve in the Colorado Senate, and more than 30 of those women have served in both the House of Representatives and the Senate. And whereas, even though the 19th Amendment had passed, not all women could vote yet. The struggle continued, with the following activities expanding the number of women voting. The last treaty giving Native Americans the right to vote was passed in 1924, and at that point, all Native American women citizens could vote. Federal policy barred immigrants of Asian descent from becoming United States citizens until 1952. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, aimed to overcome legal barriers at the state and local levels that prevented African American citizens from exercising their right to vote as guaranteed under the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution. And the VRA was later expanded to ensure that all election material was also made available in Spanish so that all Hispanic American citizens had access. And whereas women are running for office in unprecedented numbers, following in the footsteps of these great suffragists. And whereas today women legislators play a vital role in addressing difficult social and economic issues and helping our country and the state of Colorado prepare for the future. And whereas Colorado has a high percentage of women serving in the state legislature at 47%, while the national percentage of women state legislators is 29%. And whereas Colorado currently has 47 women serving in the General Assembly, which is the largest number of women in the legislature in Colorado's history. And whereas such contributions and leadership in areas that help women improve their lives and the lives of those around them led the United Nations in 1975 to designate March 8th as International Women's Day, and led the United States Congress in 1987 to designate the month of March as National Women's History Month. And whereas August 26, 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of the right of women to vote, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the 72nd General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the members of the 72nd General Assembly, hereby declare the month of March 2020 to be Colorado Women's History Month in recognition of the struggles, accomplishments, and contributions of American women throughout history, and we commemorate the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to each member of Colorado's congressional delegation, Governor Jared Polis, Lieutenant Governor Diane Primavera, Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, State Treasurer Dave Young, Attorney General Phil Weiser, the Colorado League of Women Voters, the Colorado Coalition Against Global Genocide, and the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame.
Is there further discussion? Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I would like to move L001 to amend the resolution.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read amendment L001 to SJR 020?
Amendment L001, Senate Joint Resolution 20 by Senator Todd. Amend printed resolution page 4, strike line 27, and substitute the League of Women Voters of Colorado, the Coalition Against.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And basically, this is just a technical
Senator Todd, will you please move
amendment
the amendment
for League of Women Voters of Colorado. is the piece that was added.
Senator Todd, will you please move the amendment?
I'm sorry, I move L001.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L001 to SJR 020. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. To the Resolution Center.
Thank you, Mr. President. And with that, I ask for an aye vote on Senate Joint Resolution 20-020 and raise my glass and toast all those women that came before us. And thank you all for your support of women in being elected officials.
Having no further discussion on this resolution, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 020. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Joint Resolution 20 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senators Winter,
I think
Danielson,
everybody signed on.
Williams, Lee. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would just ask that the morning roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on Senate Joint Resolution 020. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 019?
Senate Joint Resolution 19 by Senators Cook and Janal and Representative Carver concerning declaring the week of May 10th through the 16th, 2020 as Police Week, and in connection with declaring May 15th, 2020 as Peace Officers Memorial Day.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Joint Resolution 19 lay over until May 29th.
You have heard the motion. The motion is to lay over Senate Joint Resolution 19 to 5/29/2020. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that resolution will be laid over. Consideration of memorials. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Memorial 002?
Senate Memorial 2 by Senators Heise and Garcia, memorializing Congress to recognize correctional workers at the Federal Correctional Complex in Florence, Colorado, and in connection therewith to provide fair and uninterrupted compensation for their essential work during federal government shutdowns.
Senator Heise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Memorial 002 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Senate Memorial 002 at length?
Senate Memorial 2 by Senators Heise and Garcia, memorializing Congress to recognize correctional workers at the Federal Correctional Complex in Florence, Colorado, and in connection therewith to provide fair and uninterrupted compensation for their essential work during federal government shutdowns. Whereas the Federal Correctional Complex, Florence, comprised of 4 institutions: Federal Prison Camp, FPC, Federal Correctional Institution, FCI, United States Penitentiary, USP, and United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, ADMAX, is located near Florence, Colorado, opened in 1994, and provides various degrees of security from minimum security to supermax. And whereas inmates deemed too dangerous, too high profile, or too great a risk for other prisons are housed at ADMAX and include Unabomber Ted Kaczynski, Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, terrorist Zacarias Moussaoui, who played a key role in the September 11, 2001 attacks on New York City, and Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, former leader of Mexico's Sinaloa drug cartel. And whereas, in total, the complex currently houses 1,395 prisoners, 376 of them at ADMAX, including foreign and domestic terrorists, organized crime figures, serial killers, and men who have murdered correctional officers and fellow inmates, placing staff in dangerous situations daily. And whereas the correctional officers of the Federal Correctional Complex, Florence, must undergo extensive training to maintain safety and security at the penitentiary 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and staff must also provide medical and mental health services, food services, academic opportunities, substance abuse treatment, cognitive and behavioral treatment, and recreation to the inmates. And whereas, when there is a federal government shutdown, employees at the Federal Correctional Complex, Florence, are required to work, oftentimes without guarantee of pay or of pay in a timely manner, because the complex cannot shut down under any circumstances. And whereas correctional officers at the Federal Correctional Complex, Florence, are paid less than correctional officers working for Colorado's Department of Corrections, but serve a mission of protecting the citizens of Colorado and the United States, often from our most dangerous criminals. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 72nd General Assembly of the State of Colorado that the Congress of the United States is hereby memorialized to recognize the hard work and sacrifice of correctional workers at the Federal Correctional Complex, Florence, the significant role they play in the criminal justice system, and their loyalty and service to the United States. That the Congress of the United States should honor this vital work through legislation guaranteeing that correctional workers at the Federal Correctional Complex, Florence, are paid during a government shutdown and by ensuring they earn a wage commensurate with their difficult and necessary work. Be it further resolved that copies of this memorial be sent to Senator Cory Gardner, Senator Michael Bennett, Congresswoman Diana DeGette, Congressman Joe Neguse, Congressman Scott Tipton, Congressman Ken Buck, Congressman Doug Lamborn, Congressman Jason Crow, Congressman Ed Perlmutter, and Michael Carbajal, Director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons.
Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have many, please feel free to be seated, but we have many federal correctional facilities in southern Colorado and several of them in Senate District 2. But these people, they're our constituents, they're our neighbors, and they don't see the same recognition that we offered for our state employees just because of where our focus is. And it was during the last shutdown, the federal government shutdown, when many of these employees became food bank patrons for the first time in their lives. They went over a month without receiving a paycheck, and that was putting quite a strain on their families. And that's when I became aware of what a vital role they play for us in the southern Colorado. So I wanted to honor them, and President Garcia knew the mechanism to make that happen.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Memorial 002. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Memorial 002 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the current roll call be added as Senate sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on Senate Memorial 002. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Memorial 001.
Senate Memorial 1 by Senators Bridges and Scott, memorializing Congress to repeal the federal law establishing the annual advancement of time known as daylight saving time and leave the United States on standard time year-round.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Out of deep respect and appreciation for the good senator from Arapahoe County and the good senator from Mesa County, and all of those good senators, especially the one from Senate District 1 from years ago, that have made this such an important issue for all of us to spend so much of our precious time on. I move to lay over Senate Memorial 1 until November 1st at 2 a.m.
The motion is to lay over Senate Memorial 001 until November 1st at 0200 hours. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Memorial 001 is laid over until November 1st. Message from the House. Consideration of Governor's appointments consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Member of the Colorado Commission on the Aging for term expiring July 1st, 2023, Jimmy Dwayne Collins of Los Alamos, Colorado, serves Republican from the 4th Congressional District. Appointed members of the State Electrical Board for term expiring July 1st, 2022, Chad Kelly, Delaware, Colorado, serves as an electrical contractor as a master's license. Appointed for term expiring July 1st, 2020, John Steven Mullen of Denver, Colorado, serves as representative of the public at large in occasion of the resignation of Eric Clark of Denver, Colorado. Appointed member of the Colorado Banking Board effective July 1st, 2019, for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Richard Esteban Martinez Jr. of Centennial, Colorado, serves as representative of bankers as a representative of a bank having less than $150 million in total assets. Reappointed member of the Pinnacle Assurance Board of Directors for term expiring January 1st, 2023. Ellen J. Gollenbeck of Denver, Colorado, serves as an employee of an employer whose liability is insured by Pinnacle on occasion by the resignation of William Niche Lindsay III of Denver. Appointed member of the State Plumbing Board for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Noreen H. McMahon of Steamboat Springs, Colorado, serves as an at-large member. Reappointed members of the Workers' Compensation Cost Containment Board for term expiring December 13th, 2022, Karen Cook Willis of Colorado Springs, Colorado, representing executives with good risk management experience in the insurance industry. Appointed Edward Dean Davis of Centennial, Colorado, representing employers with good risk management experience with respect to their workers' compensation insurance. Reappointed Patrick Warren Haig, Fort Collins, Colorado, serves as an executive with good risk management experience in the insurance industry. Appointed members of the Board of Assessment Appeals for term expiring July 1st, 2020, Sandra Winhorf Mercier of Westminster, Colorado, reappointed. Mary Kay Kelly of Silverthorne, Colorado, reappointed. Ann Louise Miracle of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Greg Allen of Lakewood, Colorado, reappointed. Amy J. Williams, MAI of Hayden, Colorado, a member engaged in agriculture, reappointed. Samuel McCullough Forsyth of Louisville, Colorado, reappointed. For term expiring July 1st, 2023, Diane Marie DeVries of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, reappointed. Members of the Underground Damage Prevention Safety Commission for term expiring January 1st, 2023, Janet Eileen Jones of Longmont, Colorado, serves as representative of energy producers, reappointed. Nicholas Christopher Cameron of Firestone, Colorado, serves as representative of municipalities, reappointed. James Robert Moody of Denver, Colorado, serves as representative of contractors, reappointed. Theodore Wayne Jensen of Wellington, Colorado, serves as representative of Colorado counties, appointed. David Robert Ellis of Morrison, Colorado, serves as representative of excavators, appointed. Mark Duran Williams of Broomfield, Colorado, serves as representative of water utilities, appointed for term expiring January 1st, 2022. Thomas Daniel Sturmer of Aurora, Colorado, serves as representative of telecommunications and broadband sectors, appointed. Member of the Juvenile Parole Board for term expiring November 15, 2021. Elizabeth K. Martinez of Denver, Colorado, serves as a member of the public at large on occasion by the resignation of Kaylin Hudson Pillar of Montrose, Colorado. Appointed members of the State Housing Board for term expiring January 31st, 2024. LaDon Sperling of Lakewood, Colorado, serves as a member from the 7th Congressional District as Republican. Appointed for term expiring January 31st, 2021. Samuel Gerard Betters of Loveland, Colorado, serves as Democrat and resident of the 2nd Congressional District on occasion by the resignation of Erica Estrada of Louisville, Colorado. Appointed members of the State Board of Equalization for term expiring September 2nd, 2021. Martin Jeffrey Flom of Westminster, Colorado, serves as a representative of knowledge of property taxation, occasioned by the changing designation of Dickie Lee Hollingshorst of Longmont, Colorado. Appointed members of the Financial Services Board for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Sunday Lynn Seafried of Castle Rock, Colorado, serves as executive officer of State Credit Union as a Democrat. Appointed. Gerald Allen Agnes of Boulder, Colorado, serves as executive officer of State Credit Union and as a Republican. Reappointed members of the Advisory Committee on Governmental Accounting for term expiring May 18th, 2023. Curry Bachtor of El Paso, Colorado, serves as representative of Special Services Districts. Appointed. Brenda Ritchie of Boulder, Colorado, serves as representative of City and County Government. Appointed. James Edward Ray of Windsor, Colorado, serves as certified public accountant. Reappointed. Members of the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority Board of Directors for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Max Tyler of Lakewood, Colorado, serves as a member representing the public. Reappointed. Julie J. Bruin of Bellevue, Colorado, serves as a member representing the public. Reappointed. Michelle Grizzly Miles of Trinidad, Colorado, serves as a member representing the public. Appointed. Members of the Colorado Limited Gaming Control Commission for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Richard L. Nathan of Greenwood Village, Colorado, serves as a member from the 6th Congressional District as attorney and Democratic occasion by the resignation of Barbara Lorraine Alberta Minglewood, Colorado. Appointed for term expiring July 1st, 2020. Sean Louise Coleman of Boulder, Colorado, to serve as a member from the 2nd Congressional District representative of registered electors and as a Democrat on occasion by the resignation of Honorable Cynthia D. Mears of Centennial, Colorado. Appointed for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Justin Davis of Grand Junction, Colorado, to serve as a member of the 3rd Congressional District as a representative of certified public accountants and corporate finance as unaffiliated occasion by the resignation of Kelly Clevin of Pueblo, Colorado. Appointed member of the Colorado Lottery Commission for a term expiring July 1st, 2023. William John Clayton of Littleton, Colorado, to serve as representative of law enforcement as an unaffiliated. Reappointed member of the Colorado Racing Commission for a term expiring July 1st, 2023. Laurier Scott, DVM of Commerce City, Colorado, to serve as a veterinarian as an affiliate from the 7th Congressional District. Reappointed members of the Securities Board for a term expiring July 1st, 2022. Nilsa Guerrero Mahan of Brighton, Colorado, to serve as a certified public accountant. Appointed. Members of the Transportation Commission. For term expiring July 1st, 2021, Eula Adams, Denver, Colorado Service Commissioner for the 3rd Transportation District, occasion of the resignation of Jesus Belito Calantes of Lone Tree, Colorado, appointed for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Irving Halter, Colorado Springs, Colorado Service Commissioner for the 9th Transportation District, occasion of the resignation of Robert Keith Scott of Colorado Springs, Colorado, Donald Clifford Stanton of Arvada, Colorado Service Commissioner for the 2nd Transportation District, appointed. Linda Kathleen Brack of Fort Collins, Colorado Service Commissioner from the 5th Transportation District, appointed. Barbara Vasquez of Caldwell, Colorado Service Commissioner from the 6th Transportation District, appointed. Catherine Hall, Grand Junction, Colorado Service Commissioner from the 7th Transportation District, appointed. Gary Allen Beatty of Genoa, Colorado Service Commissioner from the 11th Transportation District, appointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments listed on the consent calendar, which includes members of the Colorado Commission on the Aging, State Electrical Board, Colorado Banking Board, Pinnacle Assurance Board of Directors, State Plumbing Board, the Workers' Compensation Cost Containment Board, the Board of Assessment Appeals, the Underground Damage Prevention Safety Commission, the Juvenile Parole Board, the State Housing Board, the State Board of Equalization, Financial Services Board, Advisory Committee on Governmental Accounting, Colorado Housing and Finance Authority Board of Directors, the Colorado Limited Gaming Control Commission, Colorado Lottery Commission, Colorado Racing Commission, Securities Board, and the Transportation Commission. And Mr. President, I didn't quite get all the names though, so if you could make sure that we're all on the same page, and if you could go through all the names that are on those boards for us, that would be helpful.
Mr. Majority Leader, that request will not be honored. Is there any further discussion? The motion is a confirmation of all the appointments on the consent calendar. Please consult your calendar for those appointments and names. Are there any no votes?
That's never been the case. We're able to vote no on any bill on a consent calendar. We don't have to vote no on the entire consent calendar.
I mean, there's just not a function in, there's not a function for me to like vote no on a single governor's appointment on a consent calendar is the issue.
The Senate will stand in a brief recess. The Senate will come back to order. Consideration of governor's appointments consent. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's been a request to take the members of the Financial Services Board off of the consent calendar.
Will the clerk please read the appointments listed on the consent calendar? Retraction. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of the members of the Financial Services Board on the consideration of governor's appointments.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is for the confirmation of the appointments listed on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes?
Oh, I just moved Financial Services.
With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, the consent calendar is approved. Consideration of governor's appointments. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of the members of the Financial Services Board.
Is there any discussion? The motion is for the adoption, is the appointment of the members to the Financial Services Board. Are there any no votes? Senators Cook, Sonnenberg, Woodward, Gardner, Heisey, Quorum, Marble, Rankin, the Minority Leader, Lundin. Tate. With a vote of 23 ayes, 11 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the motion, those members are confirmed to that board. Message from the House.
The House is postponed indefinitely. Senate Bill 165, 171, 130, 65, 115, 108, and 164. The bill is returned herewith.
Members, if our senators could remain at their desk but still convene the Capitol Choir from your remote place, we would like to wish a happy birthday and sing happy birthday to several members who celebrated their birthday. That includes Senator Scott, April 23rd, Senator Winter, May 7th, Senator Sonnenberg, May 17th, and Senator Quorum, May 22nd. So will the conductor of the Capitol Choir please lead us off? Not bad, not bad. Announcements. Happy birthday to those members. Announcements. Senator Gonzalez, followed by Senator Foote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to let people know on the Senate Finance Committee, we will be meeting today in our regular committee room, Senate Committee Room 357 at 11:15. Please be prompt. We have a number of bills under consideration and we'll be going in order. Thank you very much.
Senator Foote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate State Affairs, we have a couple of announcements. First of all, we'll meet upon adjournment, which will be 15 minutes upon adjournment, somewhere around 11:15. We are in a different room this time than usual. We're in a House Committee room in the basement, HCR 112. So we will meet in HCR 112. We have a number of bills on the calendar. I think it's going to be a recurring theme that we are going to move some of them around. We will, I know, be moving House Bill 1232 and House Bill 1313 to the end of the State Affairs calendar. We also will be laying over Senate Bill 190 and Senate Bill 205 to a later date, either for Saturday or Monday, just so you know that going into it. And the rest of them will be as written on the calendar, at least as of now, subject to change. So we'll see you 15 minutes upon adjournment in HCR 112.
Any further announcements? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, that was kind of a sad happy birthday. It was a little odd, at least. But there is something that we should celebrate. Something very exciting. Even better than that. Our amazing reader, Andrew Carpenter, and his presumably amazing wife, Melissa Carpenter, are expecting a baby boy November 20th. I can say this from experience. Good luck. And congratulations to both of you and your family. Members, obviously, if you look on your calendar, some of you have noticed there is a committee scheduled for Saturday. We will know for certain tomorrow, but we are hopeful that we will be able to do the committee, but not actually need to convene for floor work here in the chamber. We will let you know officially either by the end of today or tomorrow morning. But the hope is that we can have appropriations meet, probably in that case earlier than 1:30, I think, so people don't have to wait around for the committee to start. But the hope is that we will not have to actually come here to the floor, convene, and do floor work on that on Saturday. We will let you know for sure. We're discussing it, and we'll let you know as soon as we know.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader, for giving me an opportunity. There have been questions, my understanding, I don't know this is for sure, but I understand that the House may pass the budget and orbital bills Saturday. So there were some who are asking, will we be coming in Saturday for appropriations to start that process and then maybe come to the floor for the budget on Saturday? And I think it's safe to say, no, that's not on the table. And if it's only appropriations meeting, then I agree with the Majority Leader. If there's a way that we can do this without having to have all of us come down here or establish a quorum that morning, then it's at least worth looking at. But I did want to clarify for those who have asked, this is not leading into extended floor debate on Saturday afternoon or evening on the budget. I think that's correct.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, thanks for your work this morning. We, I think, may have some things to read across, at least coming over from that other chamber down the hall. And so we will recess, but you do not need to be here. So, Mr. President, I move that the Senate recess until 12 noon today.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes having the motion is adopted. The Senate will stand in recess until 1200 hours today.